Sometimes we're like the prodigal son in the story. We think that the grass is greener on the other side. We get deceived by social media, pop culture, other people's lives that we might think is better than ours. And we think, you know what? This Christian thing is just not for me. This God thing is not for me because the grass over here is hard, it's challenging. I get myself Hey y'all, and welcome back to the Rose Garden, Candid Conversations with Rashida Rose. I'm Rashida, and I'm super excited about this conversation that we're gonna have today. But first, I wanna ask you a question. Have you ever felt stuck in a loop? Have you ever felt like you were just cycling around the same mistakes, apologizing and coming back again, trying to break habits, but then going back into it again, or feeling like you've made too many mistakes to even be able to ask for forgiveness? I'm here to tell you that you are not alone. We've all been there before when we've been in a position that almost feels unredeemable. But the truth is, no one is beyond redemption. Redemption is available for each and every one of us. No matter how many times you mess up, no matter how far gone you might think you could be. But wait, let me prove it to you. Here in the book. Do you know the story of the prodigal son? In Luke chapter 15, it tells us of a rich man who had two sons. And the younger son came to him and said, "Dad, I want my inheritance. Give me my part of the property, give me my part of the money, and let me go out and live my best life." And his father actually did it. I wouldn't have if I was his dad, but he actually did it. He gave him the opportunity to take what he thought was his, what I guess was rightfully his by inheritance or whatever, and walked off to live a better life because he thought the grass was greener on the other side. It didn't take him long to realize that he ran out of money. He had no way to sustain himself, no place to live, no food to eat. He was literally eating with the pigs. Eating with the pigs because he thought that the grass was greener. But he found out that even with his inheritance, in his own strength, he could not make it. He couldn't sustain himself. And while he was there eating in the pig's pen, he had a thought. He remembered, my dad's servants are living better than this. Even his servants have a place to sleep and food to eat. Maybe I should go back. So he decided to go back and apologize to his father and see if he would at least hire him as a servant. He wasn't even trying to come back as a son. He wanted to come back as a servant. And the Bible tells us that his father stood there and saw him coming from afar off and ran to meet him with joy. And so as his father saw him coming from afar off, let's read in verse 22 the response of the father to the son who went away, kind of disrespectfully, but came back. In verse 22 he says, "But the father said to his servants, 'Quickly bring out the best robe for the guest of honor and put it on him, and give him a ring for his hand and sandals for his feet, and bring the fattened calf and slaughter it. Let us invite everyone and feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was as good as dead and is alive again. He was lost and has been found.' So they began to celebrate." Sometimes we're like the prodigal son in the story. We think that the grass is greener on the other side. We get deceived by social media, pop culture, other people's lives that we might think is better than ours. And we think, you know what? This Christian thing is just not for me. This God thing is not for me because the grass over here is hard, it's challenging, or you can't do the things that your flesh wants to do. But like the prodigal son, we always come to the end of ourselves and realize the resources that we thought that we could have, the business plans, the family, the fame, none of that is enough to feed us. And at some point, it's going to dry up and it's going to go away. The only thing that will remain is God and his love for us. And what I love about the story is the reception of the father getting his son back. For him to see him coming from afar off must mean he was looking in that direction and immediately recognized him. He didn't chastise him. He didn't say, "Good for you, I told you not to go." He didn't say any of those things. He met him with compassion and welcomed him in with parties and the juiciest steak, the fanciest robe. He had everybody come together to celebrate his son coming back to him. That is the love of the Father for us. no matter how far we go, no matter how prideful we became, God is just waiting for us to come back to him. Not for him to beat us with correction that we rightfully deserve, but for him to celebrate us and to remind us of the inheritance. Matter of fact, the prodigal son spent his inheritance, yet still got to come back to a house and eat his father's food. And I'm pretty sure by looking at the compassion of the father, it's kind of safe to assume that his father still would have given him something when it was time for him to actually inherit his inheritance. That is God for us. The truth is, we can't return back home in our own strength. But the good news is, that's why God sent us Jesus. He sent Jesus as that missing piece to reconcile us back to the Father. He sent Jesus as our gateway to get back to God. So no matter how far we strayed, no matter how far we venture off, Jesus is our connection back to God, guaranteeing us adoption into the kingdom of God, adoption into the family of God. Jesus saw us in our broken, lost, dark, prideful, arrogant ways and chose to die for us as a way of reconciling us back to the Father. According to the Bible, the only punishment for sin is death. But we don't have to pay that because Jesus paid it for me. I'm so glad that because of the sacrifice of one man who was also God, I have an opportunity to come back to God every time I fall down, every time I mess up. So I have an ability to be redeemed. And if the word redeemed sounds like big theology to you, let's break it down. This is what it means to be redeemed. Actually, there are 3 different definitions of redeemed. To be redeemed in the practical sense of the word just means to be saved from a bad situation. But for us as believers, as Christians, to be redeemed is to be saved from the penalty of sin. But God goes even further. He redeems us even in our reputation. I might have been a murderer before, but God no longer sees me as a murderer. He sees me through the lens of his son. I might have been a liar. I might have been a thief, a cheater, whatever I was. I don't have to identify as that anymore. Because of the redemption of Jesus Christ on the cross, he redeemed my soul and my spirit back to him, but he also redeemed my reputation. I get to show up as a new person every time. Even if it was 5 minutes ago, and I'm not trying to be there 5 minutes ago, but if it were to happen, God is still available to redeem us and he'll never get tired. He'll always be like the Father, waiting to see us coming back afar off and welcoming us with warm arms and just loving on us with compassion because that's who he is. So how can we apply the concept of being redeemed to our everyday life? I think the first thing is to recognize that everybody can be redeemed. There's forgiveness available for all of us. Don't count yourself out. Trust me, it really doesn't matter what you did. Jesus died for all of it. There is grace for all of it. You're not too far gone. I'm not too far gone. I think the first step is to recognize that you can be redeemed. I think the second thing is to forgive yourself. God forgave you, so why am I there is no condemnation to those who are within Christ. So if God forgave me, sure, I can be convicted in a healthy way to want to turn towards being a new person and actually walking out the life of a person who is redeemed, but I don't have to be condemned, meaning canceling myself, counting myself out, beating up on myself. If God has grace for me, I should have grace for myself as well. And in our journey of accepting our redemption, we need to phone a friend, seek guidance that can remind you of who you are in Christ and what God has made available for you. So that those thoughts that try to plague on you, making you remember what you did, so that there's someone else in your corner speaking to the truth, pointing you back to the word, and reminding you that you are redeemed. And I think the last thing for us to do is to embrace the fresh start. Just like the prodigal son, we don't really hear much about his perspective or his emotions after his father welcomed him back, but I can imagine it might have been kind of hard to get back into the group of things. You see the servant side-eyeing you like, didn't you just leave last week and take everything? Or even the brother in the story was feeling some sort of kind of way, his older brother. But I think it's just accepting that you have a fresh start. Embrace it and move differently. Don't be in a place where you constantly need redemption, but try to steward your redemption. Don't dwell on the past. Focus on where you are now and where God is trying to bring you to. That's a part of stepping out of condemnation and into conviction, but conviction only really works if you allow it to shift you into walking straight. If on my right side, let's flip it. No, this is probably opposite because the camera. If on my left side I have condemnation and on my right side I have conviction. Conviction is a great thing because we're going to need to be corrected as we go, but I just want to walk the straight and the narrow and embracing that fresh start and recognizing that because I'm redeemed, I'm now empowered to walk with Christ and not live out the past and have to go back to that cycle. I'm redeemed, and that redemption is pushing me forward. So remember, you are loved and you are not alone. Because of the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, redemption is available for us. So no matter how far you fall, no matter how many times you mess up, no matter what you've done in your past, redemption is available for you. Grace is available for you. So embrace redemption. Embrace the fact that your life was already paid for. Every mistake you will ever make, God already accounted for it. Pick yourself back up. Keep moving forward. And if this concept of redemption is a new thing to you and you're really just now receiving Christ, I encourage you, find a local church. And if you don't have one, DM me, comment below, send me a message. Maybe I know one in your city. If not, maybe we can chat and I can share the goodness of Jesus with you. So I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments. Like this video, share it with a friend, and I'll see you next time. Bye.